Let's record for just like a minute and get in the groove so we are not just super awkward and like. Yes. Okay.
Albus
Dumbledore.
What was the blowing word? A boy on the 7th floor. Tip of the tongue, the teeth, the lips.
I was nearly headless Nick.
Hey.
But then, you know what's up?
Please, I want to go back to my class. I'm afraid the staircases won't be in order for another 2 hours.
Oh God.
Because they move. I read the book.
Man.
I mean, they're definitely. I know this conversation has been had plenty of times, but they're doing like magic sex stuff all the time. There's no fucking way.
Absolutely, for sure.
Like, there's a spell that you just point at your dick and immediately
Sure, yeah.
reach sexual climax.
When they did the polyjuice potion and Hermione got the cat, it's like, yo, you gotta fuck.
Well, it's my understanding that the wizarding world is kind of almost pseudo-puritanical. Like, you know, they have... Well, there's a lot of racism in it. It's all about, like, keeping very strict to the code. So I can imagine maybe there's, like, serious taboos against using magic and sex and, like, doing some insane shit.
But they have a potion that makes people fall in love with you.
Yeah.
But it's, like, frowned upon, isn't it?
Yeah,
Even
exactly.
in the
not
world.
like
Some 17-year-old does it.
Well, yeah, 17-year-olds do, like, acid and fucking weed.
I guess that's
and it's
true.
like, that's also not good. It's not...
I don't agree, but I think, okay.
Not to say that the crazy sex shit doesn't happen. It's just...
I guess that's true.
Yeah, they're doing all sorts of shit in how. I mean, you know it.
Yeah.
Because that's what's great. I always thought that was funny how it's like they're all hiding around. Like, if they're not caught, there's no security cameras at Hogwarts. Yeah. You'd think they put up a camera.
Ghosts, though.
Like, they know about them. They know that, like, those are out in the world. If it's set in the 90s, like, Hogwarts could use, like, a, you know, CTV or whatever.
One of my favorite lines from the second Harry Potter book is where Harry No, it might not be this. He's writing a letter to Sirius and he's explaining what a PlayStation is. Because what's his brother's name?
Dudley.
Dudley, yeah. Because Dudley got so mad at this PlayStation that he threw it out the window.
Right.
I've like always remembered that.
And that's like a.
That's really
That's
in the book.
bizarre.
Really
to think of Harry Potter saying the
like
word
the Voldemort
PlayStation.
thing is happening as like NSYNC's second album comes out. It's like the same year. That shit's fucking nasty, dirt nasty.
Gross.
Ooh, are you spooked? Welcome to Reasonable fucking Spook, I guess.
What?
Whoa. We don't want to go with that.
Yeah,
Reasonable.
Okay.
Like what? Like
reasonable. Yeah, I'm trying to think of beef.
We're gonna start all over again. Okay. Ooh, welcome to Reasonable Ghoul.
What about
Reasonable
Boo?
Screams?
What about Boo?
Reasonable. Why was Boo? Why would Boo work better than Ghoul?
Because it starts with a B and it's...
Yeah, but there's nothing. Okay, what rhymes with beat that's spooky?
Screams.
Seasonable treats. Welcome to Seasonal Treats. I am Tim E. Kish, your host. I'm joined today by my co-host. What's your name?
I'm hey Dom.
His name. And Nick is also here.
That's me.
You didn't ask Nick. You asked me. You gave me the courtesy of saying my name, and then you're like, and Nick.
And Nick is here. Nick Oldershaw. He is once again my roommate.
Yeah,
Tim's
Nik
roommate.
Oldershaw.
Referred to frequently in these talks as like, so my roommate Nick, or like, well, you know, that's what Nick was saying.
Yes.
And now he's here.
Now he's manifest IRL. So today we're doing a spooky movie. We're going to talk about Monster Squad, cult movie, 1987, directed by a guy named Fred Decker, written by a guy named Shane Black, who's one of my favorite screenwriters. I had never seen this movie before. And apparently,
I forgot already that was like...
This is a movie that's talked about in the same breath as, like, The Goonies and Sandlot as, like, the movies you need to see as a kid. And I just had no interest. I don't know why. Like, spooky monsters never fucking tickled me.
I mean, I don't even remember what... I thought it was that because I was in a short film made by these older people, and they were like, all right, so this is the vibe. It was, you know, a bunch of kids and spooky shit happened, and they were like, here's the stuff you should watch. Like, if you haven't seen The Goonies, see The Goonies. If you haven't seen Monster Squad, see Monster Squad. If you haven't seen... I don't know what that's... So, okay, so my hand just hit the shoebox upon which my microphone is sitting, and when my fingers brushed it, Tim just, like, went straight big spooky ghoul-eyed on me. Like I had just done a travesty.
Just keep hitting the shoebox throughout the episode, and we'll say that it's a haunted episode.
Oh yeah, there's a ghost, and he's got opinions, and he wants to share.
Wow, this is a great running joke that's getting started here, folks. I just thought I'd step in. Okay, so Monster Squad is a film. Nick, when was the first time you saw Monster Squad?
The first time I saw Monster Squad, I think I had to be like 14. It's fun. It's an interesting movie. I don't know. How do we want to dive
So
in?
none of us saw it at like the point when we were supposed to see it, right?
Yeah.
So like, you know, that 8 to 13 or whatever. But
I
what is
might
this
have been
movie
right on the
rated?
edge.
It's rated PG-13.
Okay.
Oh, is it PG-13?
It's PG-13. Yeah.
It's
yeah.
on that end of the.
It was one. It had to be. I don't know. Well, there's something about that I'll bring up later
Well,
too.
so
but yeah.
I see why this movie is for no one, being that it's a PG-13 movie. Because, like, okay, so the plot of this movie, just not to get too in-depth, Dracula wants an amulet. That's all goodness is in this amulet. And so he gets his buddies, the Wolfman, the creature from the Black Lagoon, a mummy, and the Frankenstein's monster, and, like, team up to fight these kids. And it's just like, this movie is PG-13?
Well,
Like, that's such, like, a strange concept to pitch to not kids
Also,
in the
it's-
80s.
By the way, I think 3 of the 5 monsters are all in one town. Like the Black Lagoon is in that town where they live.
Right,
Yeah.
right. There's nothing special happens.
Yeah.
He just shows up.
The mummy is in the museum of the town, and the Wolfman is just some guy. They have the same
so
haircut.
they're doing those monster movies, but right, so they're doing the connected universe, the new one with like Tom Cruise and Russell Crowe's gonna be Jekyll. It's gonna be the Avenger, like Jekyll Hyde is gonna be their Hulk.
Right. So we hear
You know,
this.
like-
We hear this a lot. That like, you know, the Universal monsters were the first Avengers or whatever. I've heard that
first
before.
Connected universe.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
But it's like, but now it literally might be like the Avengers,
Yeah, that's weird.
which is really weird.
Come full
Well,
circle.
even in this movie when they assemble, and my biggest, I want to say, I don't know if we should talk about it. I was so excited for Tim to see this movie because I remembered like, oh, Monster Squad's great. People shit on Monster Squad. They don't know what they're talking about. Rewatched Monster Squad. I was like, wait, they might have a lot of valid points. there are big things. One of the things in it that's cool is when he actually assembles the team. When Dracula first assembles the team, it's so cool. His cane doubles as it keeps the Wolfman at bay. He also uses it to electrocute Frankenstein and bring him to life. Like that's great.
But
It's
see,
surreal.
why did he do that? Period. Why I don't understand. I genuinely like because when you think about then what he does to go about getting the amulet, the mummy did nothing.
Sure.
Was it all just like let me get these monsters together so that they can find the kids who have the book? But he knew who had the book, and he's Dracula. And then we see him.
Yeah, but my interpretation of this is that doesn't matter. What this really is like a kid's fantasy, and all that matters is getting to the point where it's these kids versus the spooky movie monsters that they've, you know, grown up with.
Of course, and I understand that as like, of course, that's the end game. I just I can never be convinced that there's not a better way to go about it and to fill in the gaps to make it make a little more sense.
I think that's 100% on purpose, though, because the reason he wants an amulet, like, that's the most trope shit of, like, the thing that you want. It's an amulet filled with goodness. Like, come on, dude. That is something that, like, a kid would write.
just
I
the
agree.
thing- I agree with you. It's just the thing of when you're in the movie and it's set. Now, by the way, I will say I like this movie. I was with Nick. I liked it for a very long time, and I thought very fondly of it. I don't think I've seen it since I was probably 16 or 17.
Fill in some blanks in your head because I did the same thing.
Yes.
I remembered shit that wasn't in the movie.
And I was projecting on like the story being a little more better and cohesive and stuff. And like now I'm watching, but like, and I get that just using it as an excuse to get all the monsters together. But like, when it's setting up its own rules, as I always say is the big complaint, and then we see that Dracula can do everything on his own anyway.
Yeah.
It's like you kind of get invalidated. Like why? And also that the Wolfman sort of just hangs around. Like he never uses his claws or his teeth.
Well,
he's just sort of like
never does anything.
he punches.
Dracula uses dynamite. Like the only time we see Dracula dispatch people, he's fucking he blows up the trails. He blows up. That's the one weird thing. Like it's a fairly harmless movie until he blows that policeman up, and he's like, holy shit.
Oh,
Like,
dude, that is pretty brutal.
Yeah.
And I was psyched at that moment too, just for that reason, because you're just like, oh.
But that's more to my point. Like, this is a kid's fever dream, or not even a kid's fever dream, but a kid's fantasy. Like, Count Dracula shows up and he's got dynamite, like Acme dynamite. Like, this is supposed to be like a cartoon. And I kind of loved that about it. But that being said, it almost wasn't a cartoon enough. Because that's where you get that hard camp. Like, there was some hard camp going on in this movie, but it was not cartoonish enough for what I think it wanted to be.
Well, because there's a couple moments that are a little bit strange. Because you've got dialogue written by Shane Black, so it is really funny, and it sort of walks the line of he does sort of deconstruct all the tropes of those old Universal movies very well, and also like some of the stuff that the bullies say to the kids is like so smart, and like really, how many movies hold up comedically from like 20 years ago? You know,
right?
It's great, but. The scene where they're talking, you know what I'm talking about, right? When they go to the old guy who, like, they get the book from for no things just happen in this movie, and there's no reason for them to happen, and he's explaining to them everything that the book does, and they're like, "Wow, you sure know a lot about monsters, Mister." And he goes, "Yeah, I guess I do." And he closes the door, and what do we see on his arm? A tattoo from the Holocaust.
Yeah.
Super.
And it never comes back. It's just like a weird, just like, remember the Holocaust.
I mean, it kind of is, but it's also, I think I view that guy as the wise sage, right?
Yeah, of course.
So he's the character who's the MacGuffin character who reveals the information to the heroes and leads them to the final conclusion. And I think that he's kind of playing along in their fantasy, which is, you know, the whole monster thing, and then it just checks back in with reality that he's a real person. So, like,
I suppose so.
There's some interesting shit, like, because I originally had the idea, as I'm watching it, I'm just like, oh, the monsters aren't gonna be real. Like, it's just gonna be these kids just having this elaborate fantasy, and it's gonna be, but then at the end when Dracula's breaking necks and like fucking shit, I'm like, okay, maybe this is real. So that's the way I rationalize that in my head. There's a lot of weird shit in this. With they blackmail that girl with naked pictures of her.
No, that was
Funny
so
what was
weird.
okay 30 years ago.
That blows my mind that this was a guy like Shane Black alone, and you could argue that even
Fred Decker.
Sure, but like even still, you see like sometimes. Even as recently as like Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, where there's some stuff where you can kind of like it feels sort of like that older dude writing and like thinking that he's subverting the being creepy thing, but then somehow that's creepy because it's like a weird kind of controlling thing. I mean, it's like weird to think that now he's got, you know, this is a dude who ended up directing an Iron Man movie in the biggest franchise in history, or in recent history, barring Star Wars.
Sure.
And that was someone who, like you said, like 30 years, not even, what was it, 20-something years?
30 years ago.
Yeah, 30 years ago, he was
about 30 years
writing
ago,
a scene where it's a plot point that they have taken illegal naked photos of a girl and then use those as if they've got the upper hand on her.
Yeah.
And this is a dude who's like now, but that's just bonkers to me. And he's still, I'm not saying he shouldn't have been allowed to work again or anything. I just find that crazy that that's how much stuff has even changed in the course of someone's career.
Yeah, but I think back then that was thought of as kids will be kids. You know what I mean? They're kind of doing their thing. It's just like, you know, they're like the boys are peeping in on the girls.
Sure.
It's just like, it's what kids do.
And then
it's like, and now we realize that that's fucking insanity.
Right.
You know
And
what
then
I
that's
mean?
part
Like,
of the
that's not a
perpetuating.
good. That's not like a thing to promote and say is okay.
The character, to go back to like, just even the character who does that in this movie is insane.
Who the fuck is he?
Who the fuck is he?
Yeah.
Why does he want to hang out with these kids? Why does he want to hang out with these kids? Like, I don't. The whole. He saved. We watch him save. What's the fat kid's name?
He's literally credited as Fat Kid.
No.
But I think his name is Howard or something.
Yeah, whatever.
It's something very Clarence or something a very
Yeah,
old
yeah, it's
name.
Clarence or
name.
something like
Horace, actually, I think
Horace?
it is. Is it Horace? Whatever. So the kid, he saves the fat kid.
But we don't know why. Like I don't understand what these kids have to
Again,
offer.
rationalizing it as like the cool friend. Like this is the fantasy of the kids, and they got the cool dude who's just like a badass.
Because remember, he saves the kid, and then immediately you're thinking, oh,
They have
someone's
history.
older brother. Yeah, they have history. But then you find out they don't know each other at all, and he doesn't know about their monster squad, and like
Yeah, well, look, I just thought he joined the Monster Squad because he wanted to peep on the girl, but I know you said he doesn't discover that until he's already there.
Yes, after he makes the stakes for Dracula, like
Right.
he's like deep into it.
Look, so usually I would be so on board with this criticism, right? Usually this is like my idea of, that break this apart. Why doesn't this work? But for this, I don't care. You know what I mean? Just because that's not the point of this.
Right, and I hear that, and I feel that way about plenty of stuff. I don't know why. I guess I feel personally slighted by the fact that seeing this now after 6 years of not seeing it, I'm like annoyed at it. You know what I
Right.
mean? Because like I was imagining it being smarter and more clever and more pulpy fun, and now I'm kind of looking at it, and a lot of it was feeling kind of cheap.
Yeah.
And
And
like,
there's stuff missing from the movie that like literally would make it a better movie if it was in there. There needed to be more scenes of like the monsters going around town and messing
Right,
with people.
right.
Like their threat wasn't even really super like palpable. Like in or
Right.
they didn't
It's
feel like they had a
based
presence
entirely in the fact that they're the monsters that you know. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like they don't do anything in the film per se, but it's like, oh, I know the Wolfman. I know what the creature from the back of the movie.
it wasn't
Blah,
even
blah, blah, blah.
in the wow.
The black blah blah blah. The creature. The creature.
Who, by the way, does not do anything in this movie.
Yeah, he
Doesn't
like-
do
he
a
like
single
dies
thing.
immediately.
He gives a little spook. He gives a little fright. It was too hard
And then
to
he goes back into the water.
sit that guy in the chair for 6 hours. Like, just get him out. Just get the fat kid's gonna shoot him. But I even in that of them like going around spooking people, you never felt the threat of the simple fact that the kids had this book that Dracula needs. That was never like do you know what I mean? They just kept saying it, and he kept saying like
He doesn't need the
Where's
book.
your
He
son-
wants to destroy the book because the book is the only thing that
either
can
that's
lock
what I
him
mean
in.
though.
Sure.
Needs the book. He wants the book. He wants to, like, he knows the kids have the book, but you never felt like it's the same thing of when they're playing by their own rules. And even in something pulpy and fun, and I know that maybe I just sound like a curmudgeon on this one more than I have on other episodes, but like, and again, maybe we're spoiled, but I feel like even when you're doing all this fun, like who gives a shit stuff, you can thread it with the barest thin of logic, the thin line of logic, but like I feel like this didn't even have
I can't.
the logic of like, again, why did he need all of the
I couldn't, and I know but I also understand what Tim's saying, and I can still enjoy the movie on like a visceral level like that.
yes.
But there are things that like if they like Frankenstein's relationship with the kids, Dracula tells him to go kill those kids, and they're friends with him right away. Like there should have at least
Immediately,
been one thing where Frankenstein like had some realization, like the little girl, because that's a trope in the old Frankenstein movies. He has an affection for little children, and like. There should have been some sort of conflict with him when he first like encountered them, where we actually saw him decide that he was gonna help him. Also, later when they think Frankenstein is dead, they're literally just like, "Fuck him, he died for us," and you're like,
Yeah, that kid he was
these
cold in that
kids?
scene.
Yeah.
He was like an action hero in that. He's like, then
Yeah.
he died to save us. Moving on.
But like,
It was fine. That didn't really bother me. It's just it
so
is.
when you say things like, "Why did Dracula need the amulet of light?" It's like, that's the point.
No,
That
I'm
is
not
the point.
confused about why he needs it. I'm saying that, like, why did he need the monster squad? Why did he bring all those monsters together to find the thing when we see later that he does it all alone anyway?
Yeah.
I think
Easily.
Look, I can't argue the logic. I can't argue that is sound logic.
Well, but no, to your point, you know what? Here's where, because I agree with you. I really enjoy this movie. I enjoy the setting. I enjoy the monsters. And my problem is, I actually want to spend more time with them. And that's something the movie doesn't. The movie doesn't really give us a lot to really like get to know. I want to know more about these characters, and we don't get a lot of important scenes. I think that would have made it a more enjoyable experience. The movie's 75 minutes long.
Yeah.
Yeah,
credits.
super. Okay, and again, maybe I'll backtrack now. Enjoyable. I did not like watching
Yeah,
it. Do
I'm
you know
sure
what I
it's
mean? I
good,
wasn't
yes.
annoyed as I was watching
Yeah.
it. It's just more when you're thinking about. I don't know. Like you can look at even the we were tearing apart Star Wars, and it's like even though with age and even though as silly as that can be in its logic, it's sound. Like it tells you the rules that you need to know, and then it plays by its rules. Do you know what I mean?
Sure.
And I like it's so it's frustrating when you look at something like this and it doesn't, because it would make it infinitely more enjoyable.
Yeah.
If someone was like, oh, that's so silly, like why did he need Wolfman? And you're like, well, because he knew that there was gonna blah 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 blah. And you saw that in
yeah.
that one scene, and that's why he was in it.
I think there's a crux when you do things, when you make something and when people criticize it. Like, I think if the creator cared less about something that you're investing yourself in, that's when you should just kind of give it up. So I know that Shane Black, I don't know for a fact, but I have a vague feeling that Shane Black didn't give that much of a shit about you know, like about
Probably
the
not.
logic and the universe. And I think he did exactly what he set out to do, which is have a universal monster movie where their danger is predicated entirely on the fact
let's
that.
talk about the fact though that him setting out exactly what he meant to do. This by all accounts could have ended up just being, and Nick even said, right, so this was not received very well. Didn't get good reviews. People were like, they didn't like it. It was just some kid movie. Like, this could have just disappeared forever and just been some kid's movie that came out. And it's like, when you look at it, and if you imagine that you were watching it through the lens of like, this was a forgotten about thing, I'm not sure that now if you picked it up and watched it, you would say, how did this get forgotten? How did this get looked over? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's more that just, so that's, and one of my questions, one of the things my one of my notes that I took was like, what is a cult movie? More specifically in like, what do cult movies need to be like some sort of genre hook thing? Because I don't think the answer is yes, but it seems like typically it's something with monsters. It's monsters, or it's a sci-fi thing, or it's a fantasy thing.
Yeah.
Or like,
Well, because it's typically a thing that's not for a mass audience, or
Right.
at least at the time of its release.
but that's what's so weird about like even this though, and certain cult things like this, where it's like, this was supposed to be for a while. I mean, it's the universe, it's monsters everybody knows, and it's kids, and it's suburbia, and it's like having fun and going around and stopping the bad guys. Like, this was supposed to have a big, wide net, and then it like.
I like this movie aesthetically more than the Goonies. I like the characters more than the characters in the Goonies. I like the premise more. But
Me too.
The
I agree.
Goonies is a better movie because it's a sound movie in its
Yeah.
execution.
I feel
And
that.
this movie is, and like, I guess that's why I want this movie to be better than it is, because it could have been like a legitimate classic instead of a cult classic.
But there's why it's a cult classic, right? Because what you guys are saying is, hey, this movie is not sound in its own logic, and that's probably what most reviewers are saying instead of giving it a poor review.
Right.
I'm saying, who gives a fuck? It's about silly monsters. And I think that's where the cult status comes from, because there's people like me, who I didn't necessarily love the movie, but people like me who says, who gives a fuck? It's about silly monsters, and I love it. And that's where the cult status comes from.
I guess-
Where it's just like, it's the same thing with Rocky Horror, where it's just like, yes, it's a bombastic, sexually charged, ridiculous musical. I love it. It's,
I guess
the dialogue's
Rocky
bad.
Horror is very good.
But I'm see,
It's
this is
not
I'm
really.
gonna dig my heels in
Yeah,
on this though, because even though in the Who Cares it's about silly fucking monsters, how much silly cool monster stuff do we actually get in this movie?
Very
Yeah,
little.
that's
Very
true.
little.
That's
Well,
true.
You get a great.
But it's not even about the silly monsters. It's about like the kids' fantasy. Okay,
But
I don't
we
want to
don't
talk
get
about
that
that
either.
But that's what I'm
I
saying.
wanna talk in circles
Even
about
down
this.
to them having the battle at the end, it's like that's arguably the best part of the. I mean, the whole, and that's where you're right. The whole movie was structured about how do we get monsters loose in suburbia, and I cannot deny how fun that is and how great that is. And even though most of the ending, Dracula on someone's front lawn.
Yeah.
And like blowing up a cop car and just
With a stick of
and then
dynamite,
turning
yeah.
into a bat and flying away. There's nothing you can do to tell me that that's not
Yeah, it's
outstanding.
But I want more of that.
But exactly, like, and again, like it's using it's that thing of use your pieces in the way that they're literally built to do. So it's as much as it's a deconstruction of all their tropes, we don't really get to see like a black lagoon. There wasn't a part where they had to cross the lake, and now we got to deal with the fucking creature and the right, you know, and I don't know. It's just that stuff.
Let me talk about the movie, the behind the scenes a little bit on
sure.
this. So I want to talk. It's directed by a guy named Fred Decker and written, of course, by Shane Black. So they're very close friends. They work together in film school, as far as I know.
Oh.
And he did direct Night of the Creeps, right?
Interesting.
Did Fred Decker direct Night of the Creeps?
He did, and all throughout, and Shane Black has a cameo in it, and all throughout Night of the Creeps, which came out before the Monster Squad.
Yeah.
There's graffiti that says "Go Monster Squad." So I wonder if this was like.
Oh, they were probably planning it for a while. Like, they
Yeah.
worked together. And years later, so first of all, together they are Black and Decker, which is amazing. Which is fucking amazing. And I think that was the last time. Monster Squad looks like the last time they worked together, or he cameoed at something else. But Fred Decker directed RoboCop 3, which was a huge fucking bomb. Everyone hated it. It didn't do well in the box office, and it ended his career. Like, he
rough
literally
movie.
didn't direct another movie after that. He directed like a couple episodes of Star Trek Enterprise, and then nothing. However, this new Predator movie Now that even Shane Black hasn't directed too much. This man works. He used to work like once every 4 years, right? Collect his paycheck and go the fuck home.
Lethal Weapon.
But since Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, it looks like he's got that bug in him. Or since Iron Man 3, it looks like he's got that bug in him.
You could say since Kiss Kiss Bang Bang.
Yeah, but Kiss Kiss Bang Bang's 2005, right? Iron Man 3 is 2013.
Christ Almighty, was that 2005?
Yeah, he didn't direct another movie until a decade later. So nearly a decade later.
Yeah, like 8 years. Wow. Yeah.
I know. This man, he collects his paychecks and goes chills out where the fuck he lives. I wish that we would have done this before Jack interviewed him. Our friend of the beef, Jack Howard, got to do a fucking video about him when The Nice Guys came out. I have so many questions for Shane Black. But anyway, so... And now he did The Nice Guys last year, and he's got The Predator, right? The new Predator movie. Co-written by Fred Dekker. Like, this man hasn't worked in 18 years, and he's coming back to co-write Predator. Like, hopefully this is him resurrecting his man's film career.
Sure.
Like, in his mid-50s.
Right, because, like, now Shane Black is, like, he's back.
He's hot shit.
He's back, and he's another, like, oh, it was Shane Black script. And then what I was going to say about him being gone, though, I'd be curious to see, because you don't hear about this stuff, and maybe it's worth just a variety or a deadline search, where, like, has Shane Black, though, been... He might have very well been writing spec after spec after spec, and them getting either like optioned or bought or whatever, and then nothing happens. He might have been doing that constant, even in the big gap between like
well, as far as I know, script doctoring is how he makes his money. Like he's one of the most sought after guys to come in and touch your script. That's from what I've read. I obviously don't know shit, but.
Then that makes sense. I mean, right. So then that's why there's been these big gaps. It's not so much that he's been like just doing a movie and then piecing out and doing whatever he wants. It's like I think he's constantly he's a creative writer dude.
Yeah.
But yeah.
And he's acted surprisingly often, like a lot. He's got a pretty big filmography. Yeah. Just in like small roles. Just mostly in like his friends' movies and stuff like that. But it's kind of neat. Yeah, a little cameos.
I mean, they wouldn't have stopped being friends unless there's some big beef
like,
of theirs
God
that we
knows.
know. So they must have been still friends with each other, and now he's at this point where he's got Iron Man that people love. Nice Guys, people really love the Nice Guys.
Yeah,
did you see?
I need to see it.
Oh, but
I've heard about the scene that everybody talks about with the
Now I don't want to sound, I don't want to speak about their relationship, but I almost wonder if he wasn't in a position to like help his buddy out until
Probably
now.
not.
Because now he's got 3 hit movies under his belt directed, and I. Pretty sure, right before Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, I think the thing he did was The Last Good Night?
The Long Kiss
Or The Long Kiss Good Night, which was like in 1996. So again, just huge gaps in work.
But I do wonder, I would love, and I should have done my research a little better. Like, I would love to see, though, there's got to be some way to find out if he had like 5 scripts in between.
Shane Black is probably less than 15 miles from us right now. Like, let's just go check this. But
just
anyway,
yell out the window, see if he hears.
So back on a Monster Squad.
So Monster Squad. So behind the scenes stuff as far as so it's 75 minutes long.
Yeah.
That's ape shit bonko crazy for something that is not an animated movie, right?
Sure.
I wonder if it so there's deleted scenes, and now Nick, we were talking about how there's a DVD.
There's a DVD you have it
that I have, right?
That is out of print.
That I didn't know about that. But anyway, there's DVD, so there are deleted scenes, right? But I wonder, was it more like a 90-minute movie, but it was the same level of kind of not working?
Yeah.
And then so they were like, well shit, it's even when it's longer and we fill it in with these scenes, it's not working in the same way, so that we might as well just literally cut to the chase and just be like,
well,
all right, here we fucking go.
There is one scene that I know about that, because when they broadcast this movie on TV, it was so short that they had to pad it with footage that wasn't in the theatrical version. So like when TNT would show it, in that opening, like there's word scroll and it's like Van Helsing was supposed to banish Dracula, they blew it, right? But then we don't see how they blew it because it looks pretty successful. Well, there's a scene in the TNT version.
No, we watched that scene. We watched that scene in the movie.
Yes, but they do everything right. Like Dracula's nothing goes wrong. So what do you mean
that he gets sucked in?
He gets sucked in, sure. But there's a scene in the TNT version where like they're transporting the supposedly like vanquished Dracula, the guy in the carriages, and Dracula gets up. Like and bites him, and then we're like, oh shit, Dracula's not dead. Why wasn't that in the movie?
Maybe because it didn't make like, why wasn't he dead?
But that's what the opening scroll told us. That like that's I mean it could be. It just seems like because I even thought that was weird when I was watching it. And I'm like, it looks like they didn't blow it. It looks like he did everything he was supposed to do.
And then just for whatever reason it fucked up.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. I never really thought about it. I guess, another one where I didn't even notice. So it's like, well, fuck it. I mean, I don't know. I'm not looking at this movie for plot holes. It's almost hard to discuss this movie, this 75-minute film. Yeah, because it's just like you either get it conceptually or you don't. Or, I mean, the execution, it's one of those things where the execution is largely out the window. Like, you can't put conventional film logic to this movie that's supposed to be what I think that this movie's supposed to be.
Right.
So, I don't know. I'll open the floor to you guys.
You can apply like that.
You can, but you sound like a fucking nerd. You know what I mean?
Sure,
Where it's just like,
yeah.
why didn't
Well,
Dracula?
hold up.
It's like,
This is the
man.
podcast where you guys fucking pick apart every superhero movie that comes out. Like it's the most important thing.
Yeah, but because they take themselves seriously. You know what I mean? Like, but superhero movies take
That's-
But
themselves.
here's
Okay,
the
then
thing,
that's
this
my
movie
argument.
also takes itself seriously because it has emotional moments that it doesn't earn.
Yeah, I guess that's
yeah,
true.
I
like
agree.
parts with
Yeah.
the cool dad where he's just like,
Yeah.
got my daughter.
Yeah, he was all
Fucking Dracula.
Every dad in the movie was actually really cool.
Great dads, except for the one dude who he opens the closet and the mummy is in the closet.
He just didn't see though, but he was playing along. Like that was actually a pretty cool dad. You imagine being woken up at 3 o'clock in the morning again, and then you still put on this whole song and dance.
Yeah.
That's a good dad. He didn't just walk in and say, "Kid, it's fucking fine. Now sleep with the lights off. I'm locking your door."
That would have been a fucked up movie. That would have been weirder than the Holocaust tattoo.
Yeah, but if they had more things like that though, then they would fit together. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because then you'd be like, wow, all shit's out the window here. And that's the problem is when it feels like it's trying to run through some inherent logic, and it's not. And so it's like stuck between. We're talking about the hokiness, the campiness, or whatever, but it does feel stuck between that, like the hokey thing, and also trying to be sincere and trying to be like, we love these kids, and like this is an emotional story, and like. But then it throws like even the military gag ending.
At the end is so
very
that's
weird.
weird.
But funny. But like in a movie where you're like everything's bonkers, that would fit in, and you'd be like, oh, that's funny.
Yeah, well, like none of the Wolfman's beats are funny. Like the Wolfman is like a very actually
Right,
sad part of the movie.
Yeah, he literally says thank you.
Thank you.
As he's
As he's
dying.
dying.
He's
He gets
bleeding.
Yeah, well, there is a weird juxtaposition of like scary seriousness and childlike cartoonishness
Well, I
in
think
this
like
movie.
the most
And
idiosyncratic.
but it's not played for fear. You know what I mean? It's not played to be
Right,
scary,
no,
where
no.
it's just like, oh, this thing that we think is silly is actually very dangerous in real life. It's played as if it didn't know what it wanted to do.
Right.
I almost take back what I said about he knew exactly what he was going to do, because like now that I am reflecting on those moments of like intense violence and just like and small tragedies like that with the werewolf, and then I think of times where the army men come at the end. That the army men thing I was going to use to support my child's fantasy. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like where of course an army man, he's chomping on a cigar, shows up.
He didn't even address that note.
Yeah.
He just wrote that note.
That's so funny that, they go, who are you? And he's like, we're the Monster Squad. And as the camera's panning out, you could see the actor doesn't say any dialogue to him. He just turns to the left and walks off. It's just like nobody questioned anything.
It's funny, I think like the strangest part of the movie that I forgot about, because everything else I but like the part of the movie that made me go, wait, what? Was the part in the middle, while they're all making weapons in school, they're like making bullets in shop class, whatever that like music montage was.
Oh, yeah.
Which again, like, is weird in a 70-minute movie. Like, we haven't spent enough time with these characters for them to have their own song.
Sure. So they put out that single. Like, it's featured in Monster Squad. It's just some dude with, like, fucking a mullet. Jean vest.
Michael Damian.
It's Michael Damian behind the tilt-a-wheel.
It's, for whatever it's worth, it's a great song. I mean, it might be one of the high points of the movie, actually.
It's not a great song. It's like an 80s pop, just fucking generic ass, like,
I was
Billy Ocean sounding.
Oh, I was pleasantly surprised. I think maybe just because I was so not ready for it, like, in any capacity.
Man, it's funny how much shit that we just can't show anymore. Of like kids making bullets in school. Could never do that now. Could literally never do that now. And play it with whimsy. You could never do it now. You would have to take it very seriously.
It's like I'm all for. I understand the idea. I understand conceptually the juxtaposition because I feel like actually in the stuff that I try to make, there's a lot of that thing where it's like this is light and funny, and then but also I try to do like you try to make it serious, or like even in that still in that pulpy sense of like, and then it's more dramatic all of a sudden. And you're just supposed to think like cool. You're just supposed to be like, neat Wolfman, and he's screaming because of course he's screaming. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But
That's
like,
what Wolfman did.
But there's something weird in this where
Look,
it's almost not cool enough to like justify the weird epicness of each monster rising. It's almost still. I don't know, man. It's a weird beast. This thing.
I always thought of Scrubs as being very good at that, of keeping you at a level where it's like, I'm comfortable and now I get to know these characters and I like these characters and it's all very silly and zany and cartoony, and then every once in a while they just fucking make it very real. And you care more because you were invested in the silly and these characters make me feel good and I like these guys.
I don't want to see them be sad.
Yeah.
But you spend time with those characters.
Exactly. And I feel like, well, first of all, I feel like that doesn't work in a movie format just because that is a bit of Stockholm Syndrome, where it's just I think these characters are real people, at least somewhere deep in your brain. But I feel like that's almost the tone this movie was going for with the big scary parts in the middle of the silly, lighthearted parts.
It's almost it's a distant cousin to like the Spielberg formula thing. Where, you know what I mean? Where it's generally there's a light tone. You could argue in Jaws and E.T. and blah blah blah, but like, you know, when the bad guys are there, it's like, oh, this is the bad guy, or this is the fucking shark, and you're scared, or but like, you know, or it's spooky and it's heightened and everything.
That Spielberg vibe, I always thought of the Spielberg vibe as a shark. Here's that goddamn shark again, bitch. We're gonna need a bigger boat. That's from that movie. I've never seen Jaws.
No, really?
Oh, I don't like Spielberg and I like Jaws.
I've never seen Jaws.
Hold the
fucking
phone.
The Spielberg fucking formula, I've always thought of it as a smaller story juxtaposed against a larger story.
Right.
So it's like E.T. is a story about friendship juxtaposed against fuck, there's aliens. You know what I mean?
Right.
And it's the same thing that Super 8 catches, where it's about like this kid who needs his dad's attention, right?
Right.
That was the crux of that
weirdly
movie.
more successful in some ways with Super 8 and vastly unimaginably less successful in other ways.
You know, actually, I guess you could draw the comparison to, I guess it is that Spielberg formula, except this is almost like a parody of it. Without fully committing to the parody
without
of it.
completely being like, fuck, like this is, we're doing it. Like, it's like, no, we're doing it.
I don't parody. I guess parody. I don't know if that's quite the right word. I don't know.
I don't think it's doing that. I'm just saying that it's again that's where we're talking in circles, where it's like obviously it knew it was silly to an extent, but then it's weird when it also tries to be sincere with like the little girl loves Frankenstein.
I think Shane Black's thing is like he really goes for like authentic dialogue, and that is something that I think this movie does better than like a Spielberg formula film. Like these kids sound like fucking kids. Like they're funny. Like the shit that they say to each other.
Yeah, but like I mean, you've seen E.T. You wouldn't say that the kids in E.T. sound natural. And
they sound like Shane Black characters. Is what the kids sound like. They sound like that very snappy and just like off the cuff. Kids are fucking stupid. Kids aren't that funny.
No. He's got a bit of
no. I was funny.
He's got a bit of the Aaron Sorkin dilemma and the like.
No, Aaron Sorkin is a fucking ham. Shane Black is clever.
A little bit
these
of
kids
that.
aren't monologuing. Everything's not a soliloquy.
No, I know, but a little bit of that
line,
thing where
though.
it's like you can see through the clever, like you can see that. Oh, all these people are funny in a way, or like you could even say like the Joss Whedon Avengers thing, where it's like
everybody's like
everyone's funny.
Yeah, everybody quips. That is a Shane Black thing.
And it's fine when it works, because when it works, you love it, and you love the world, and you want to fucking be with these people. And like, I'm just thinking about The Nice Guys recently, where you're just like, God, this is so fucking good. Everyone's like, but even the stupid characters are like, just so sure about how they're stupid. Like, it's just good.
That's why this Lethal Weapon show had me intrigued. Because I was like, the best part about Lethal Weapon are literally the two main characters.
Sure, yeah.
Mel Gibson, Danny Glover. I forget the name of the characters. But
Murtaugh and the other
Danny
one.
Glover.
But can you make it work without Shane Black, Mel Gibson, or Danny Glover? You know what I mean? Like, the things that made it that made these characters attractive in the first place.
Right.
Because I love spending time with characters like that, and I feel like television would be a great place for like Shane Black writing.
Well, I think technically, here's the thing about the Lethal Weapon movies. I haven't watched the show, but they did make it work because Shane Black only wrote the first Lethal Weapon, and the others were just based off of.
Yeah,
those
but
characters.
those are movies. But they still have the same
right, they're
actors.
still
You
in
know
it.
what I mean? The
Right, yeah.
it's based in the writing. They could still like base it off of that first movie. This show is kind of its own thing. You know what I mean? And the attitude and the feeling of Danny Glover and Mel Gibson like bouncing off each other's playing. It's just different.
That is so weird to think, to separate the actor from a character in anything.
Yeah.
And think, does Marty McFly as a character hold up outside of Michael J. Fox's
No,
performance?
because Michael J. Fox is Marty McFly.
Yeah, he's- sold it.
but then that's your point. That's
Yeah.
what you're saying about like, so then
You
how
could say
could
the same
they,
thing about Mel Gibson. Yeah,
like,
it's
are
not.
those two characters? Wow, that's such a weird
Well, no,
thing
no,
to
no.
separate.
No, but here's
like,
the thing.
that's-
The difference is Marty McFly is a very weak character. He has like he's unflawed. He has no character
That's
flaws.
not true at all. That's not true even a little
They-
bit.
You know what I'm saying, right?
All I can say to that point is that they definitely imposed the chick, and literally in like DVD commentaries, Robert Zemeckis has been like, yeah, I woulda, if I knew we were making more, I woulda introduced the chicken thing in the first.
Well,
movie."
the chicken
like-
thing is stupid. The chicken thing is totally shoehorned in. But to say in the first movie where he's constantly late, he's a big fuck up, and he learns his lesson by going into the past and seeing like, you know, what could be. You know, he changes things in the future for himself to be proactive.
We could talk about Back to the Future forever. Marty's place in that movie is he's got the same problems that his parents do, but he doesn't realize it. He thinks of them as these distant old fucks, and then he goes back in time. The whole point of that movie is when he's sitting across from his dad at the lunch table, and he hears his dad say the same thing he said about his music in regards to his writing. Where his dad's like, "Well, what if they tell me it's no good?" I don't think I could take that. You probably don't understand that.
That's the point.
That's the whole, like,
I
he's just
agree.
got to be like, "Oh, my parents are people."
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, I see that.
But to wrap it back into Monster Squad,
Yeah, fuck you.
so the people who originally played like these iconic Universal monster movies, like Bela Lugosi for Dracula.
Boris Karloff was Frankenstein.
Yeah, sure.
What's his name?
How much, like, it's them, right? They sell that character. Because, like, even though in this movie, obviously these are the Universal monsters, they don't feel to have a sense of cohesion. Even though they went through, like, pains to dress Dracula like Dracula, correct?
Right.
Like, to look like that old Dracula. I feel like when it's not those faces that we've just become synonymous with that creature,
The
or with
close-
that
I-
monster.
That's tricky because Dracula, all those creatures are in like the cultural zeitgeist now. I don't think it's the same thing at all. And especially like when you think how many, I would say that like
Yeah, but it's Santa Claus, where it's just like Santa Claus was in the cultural zeitgeist for years, but Coca-Cola focused that in on that one image, and now that image is Santa Claus.
Okay, well then I would ask you this: who is a more who's the more iconic Dracula at this point? Bela Lugosi or Christopher Lee? Because it's you know what I mean.
Bela
Like, we have,
Lugosi still, because I don't even think of Christopher Lee when I think of
I
Dracula.
think a lot of people
Not even a
disagree
little
with
bit.
you. I think a lot of people.
I'm sure
disagree
they
with you.
would. That's just, but I'm with him in my more of my ignorance about the Christopher Lee.
Yeah.
Like
I honestly, I think of Leslie Nielsen as Dracula more than I think of
fucking
Christopher
what?
Lee
Dead and
from
Loving It.
fucking Dracula Dead and Loving It.
I've
Right?
never
It's-
seen this. I
it's
didn't
so
know this
fucking-
existed.
It's a Mel Brooks movie.
It's
I
a
think?
no. It's
What?
his.
It's
Is it his
awful.
last movie? It might be his last.
No, come on, he's still alive. I think.
Yeah, but he's not. He learned his lesson.
Wait a second. Mel
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 Brooks is alive. Leslie Nielsen is dead.
Brooks is alive?
Yes.
Yeah. Have you seen him? He's a mess.
Who am I thinking of then?
I don't know. Maybe do it off air.
Okay, yeah.
So,
Well, off air, yeah.
so we'll think about.
He looks like a pile of leaves.
So, but then the other movie monsters are just a look. You know what I mean? Where the creature
Right.
from the Back Lagoon, Frankenstein, I guess.
You're from the back.
Dude, I
lagoon.
cannot say that.
I get
fucking
I get the back lagoon when I sit in the car
Dude,
and it's too hot
every
out.
day. Sitting in traffic, the Back Lagoon. The creature is athlete's foot, and yeah,
So,
movie. I don't know. These monsters just don't do anything.
well,
for me.
and there's something to be said though too for not. It's so weird. This is such a weird movie to talk about because it keeps its distance from the monsters in a way that I don't feel like is appropriate for like
A celebration of monsters.
right. it literally it like has them at an arm's length the whole time. Where he's not even Dracula. He's the Dracula Party City costume.
Yeah.
Like that's his image. Is like he just is.
It's funny because then all the other makeup is like the mummy makeup is insane.
Yeah.
But
it's upsetting.
I don't even just mean the way he looks. I mean that like the spirit of what he is in this movie is like you said. It's the zeitgeist Dracula.
He's Dracula.
And it's like fine. Like the closest thing we get is Wolfman, and we see that's the closest thing we have to like, oh, this really is like a celebration of what all these monsters are. Is Dracula having the Wolfman tied up and being like, why don't you, I'll be more happy to talk to you when you change into something more comfortable. Like it's like, oh my God, he's just a guy, but when he's Wolfman, now he's part of the monster.
Yeah.
He's these team villainous monsters.
Like
Yeah, interesting.
that should have been in there more.
right, yeah, right, and you get the blip. It's just a little taste.
That's
Wolfman
interesting.
transformation is incredible, by the way.
Yeah,
in
I
this
love that
movie.
transformation.
Yeah, that's very, very interesting. So you told me that it's actually hydraulics inside of facial makeup or inside of
Yeah, it's like shit that it's mechanical underneath the what would you call it, like the rubber stuff.
Yeah, there's an effect where the Wolfman's face extends to look more like a dog, I guess, who have notably wide faces, dogs.
I note it all the time. Yes, dogs.
But still, it
Wide
looks cool.
face.
It looks cool. He looks like a monster. Maybe not necessarily like canine, but he looks like a monster. I'm not gonna. And the transformation is really cool because it's practical. And I don't know. I feel like that's fucking rad. That's
It is
one of the
rad.
high points of this movie, and it's almost like they put effort in strange places. But I guess, it's a project, right? It came together. It happened. There's some shit that was good. There was some shit that was bad. They sold the movie. It got made. It made its money. And it's fucking gone.
Now a bunch of idiots are sitting around in LA 30 years later who weren't even born when it came out, still
Yeah.
talking about it.
Sure.
We,
So fucking great job, Shane Black. Make more stuff. What are you doing?
Black and
You're
Decker.
like 54.
They
Black
make
and Decker.
vacuums, right?
No, they
No,
make-
it's like shop tools.
Yeah, power tools, dude.
Like power tools.
Because I got real excited about a possible suck joke, and I was just double checking first before.
I mean, I'm sure they do
They
shop
probably-
vacs. They probably make a vacuum.
gotcha. All
Wanna
right.
sit
Most-
down? You
like
wanna
for
go it?
drills.
Let's do it.
All right. So Black and Decker.
Come on. Oh, you didn't have one.
No. Well, I was just gonna say Black and Decker. They make.
Fuck off. Three-headed critic. Here we go. I've decided that I want to change this up.
Oh, Christ.
Because this never works. So what I think we're gonna do is we're each gonna say a word and keep it going until we have a
sentence.
complete sentence
Okay.
and a complete concept of Monster
Well,
Squad.
that's like, yeah.
It
that's the way
really
you
did
should-
peak at Holocaust,
Yes.
right? Like, and that was the top of just.
Last week's was pretty good. Fucking Luke
yeah.
Cage. Anyway, I'm gonna start this off. We're gonna go clockwise, so to Dom, to Nick, then to me. The
story
should
have a different story.
period.
I like it. That's it.
Story should have been a different story.
Oh, fuck. Thank you so much for listening, everybody. I really appreciate you tuning in. Please, if you like the show and you want the audio quality to be better, give the Patreon, www.patreon.com/reasonablebeef. I just want to thank Nik Oldershaw for joining us.
You're welcome.
Do you have what's your Twitter?
It's just at, I'm sure you'll put it in the description. It's at Nik Oldershaw.
Okay, Nik. Not
N-I-K.
N-I-C-K.
And then Oldershaw the way that it sounds.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, so that's DWFY.
And what are you plugging, Dom?
Yo, go watch Spooky Boy. That's all I want.
Yeah, we had Spooky Boy come out.
Just my newest video. Because you go on typing Don Farrow on YouTube.
Cool. It's got puppets. It's got like
Puppets. It's spooky, and there's a song, and please watch it.
Thanks, guys. Have a good night.
Mr. Potter.
Monster